Hello and welcome to Three Questions with. I got my friend Darlene with us. Darlene is a bankruptcy attorney. Please note, as always, when Darlene joins the show, this is for informational purposes only, should not be construed as legal advice. As always, seek a qualified legal person before you make any decisions in your life. Darlene, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kevin.
So Darlene, I asked you to come on the show today because I'm coming across people who are really scared right now. Some people are having trouble making their rent payments. So what should someone do? Can they get evicted if they don't pay their rent right now?
Well, there's a lot of confusion out there, Kevin. There's a lot of information, and unfortunately, even the federal agencies aren't always coordinating their information. So, right now, I'm going to address Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Um, the only moratorium there is on evictions right now is in Boston, Massachusetts. And unfortunately, that's going to expire at the end of this month. So that's on the state level, or the citywide level, I should say. On the federal level, however, the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, has extended the eviction moratorium nationwide. But there are a couple of differences from the previous moratoriums. In the previous ones, it was automatic protection. So basically, everything was on hold and the courts could not do anything. Landlords could not file evictions or proceed with them. This federal moratorium eviction moratorium rather requires the tenant to be proactive. There is a form at the CDC's website that the tenant must complete and give to the landlord. And there are pre-qualifications on income, on their particular status. They have to certify it would be a hardship. So this requires the tenant to be proactive and provide that form to their landlord. And it only prevents evictions for non-payment of rent. If there are any other issues such as criminal activity, violation of health laws, et cetera, then the CDC eviction moratorium does not cover those.
So Darlene, what happens if we just can't pay our mortgage? Can we get evicted?
Well, there is also a moratorium. There are a couple of other things. It's very complicated. There's a moratorium on evictions for REO properties. So if you've already been foreclosed upon, you're still living on the property, you're technically holding over as a tenant. Those evictions cannot be started until February 28th, the end of this month. The CDC eviction protection is going to end March 31st, but it's been extended a couple of times already. We could probably expect that. As far as foreclosures, if you're behind in your mortgage payments, there are options still out there. If your mortgage is backed by either Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, then under the CARES Act, which is the federal act that Congress passed to help with all of the issues stemming from the coronavirus pandemic, you can get a forbearance. A forbearance is like a postponement of your payments for up to 12 months. You can also qualify for the forbearance even if you're in bankruptcy. There's a specific new bankruptcy law that was passed to cover that. Unfortunately, that protection expires at the end of this month. But again, we need to be watchful because a lot of these things are being extended. The most important thing with either eviction or foreclosure is to be proactive. Don't wait until you get the eviction notice or the foreclosure notice. You need to work either with your landlord if you're a tenant or with your bank or lender if you own a property. The other option that's very helpful too for people who can't make mortgage payments is getting a HUD loan counselor. If you call 211 in either Massachusetts or New Hampshire, you can ask for a free service, which is an assignment of a HUD loan counselor. And that's somebody who is trained by the federal government to help people who are in these situations and cannot make their mortgage payments. Those services are free. They know the system. They can navigate the forbearance process, and they may be able to get you a modification or some other type of relief so that you don't lose your home.
So Darlene, has there been any other changes in the bankruptcy laws to protect either renters or homeowners that they should be aware of?
Well, I did mention that debtors in bankruptcy are eligible for the forbearance under the CARES Act. And that's a big help, because back at the end of last year, there was a question as to whether if you were in the middle of a bankruptcy, you could, and you were behind on your mortgage, you could qualify for the forbearance. So Congress went ahead and actually, passed a change to the bankruptcy law, which says that debtors in bankruptcy are eligible for the forbearance. So that's a specific right that was granted to, people in bankruptcy. There are some other changes. They affect primarily Chapter 13, which is a debt reorganization. So for people who were in Chapter 13, Congress has changed the bankruptcy laws so that plans could be extended for up to 7 years. Normally, a repayment plan would be up to 5 years. That's now been extended up to 7 years, but there are requirements for that. So it's not as if you can just file now and a Chapter 13 right now and get a 7-year plan. Also, people who were in a Chapter 13 plan and couldn't complete it due to hardship can get an early discharge under certain circumstances. And that's kind of, it's very fluid, and it doesn't apply to most people, because most people are filing a straight Chapter 7 as opposed to a repayment plan. PPP loans are also now available to people who are in a bankruptcy. And that, is something new also, because there was a big question as to whether or not you could be a bankruptcy debtor in a bankruptcy and get a payroll protection plan loan if you had a business. So that eligibility was clarified. There are major changes to the bankruptcy law which are contemplated, and they were proposed, I believe, in December, but I don't know, with the new Congress, it's probably going to take a while for that to get through, all the committees and finalizing the bills. And I don't know what's going to come of that. It's nothing to do with coronavirus, really. It's been in process for some time. So I know that the organization that I belong to, which is NACBA, the National Association of Consumer Bankruptcy Attorneys, has been lobbying hard for student loan relief, because right now student loans are not dischargeable unless you have an extreme hardship. And in both Mass and New Hampshire, it's a pretty high standard. And speaking of student loans, that's something else that people need to look at if they're behind on their loans. There are certain programs for particular federally backed loans that allow for forbearance, but not all student loans are covered by that. So you need to deal with your specific lender and your specific type of loan.
So Darlene, there seems to be things changing all the time. So it's really important that someone reaches out to you to make sure you have current information, because like all things, we Google things and you may be seeing an article from 2 months ago and things have changed. So it's really important that people have up-to-date information, right?
That's correct, because it was interesting. I was trying to make sure I had the most up-to-date information for today. And as I was searching, I was coming up with things that were old, that said that the CDC's moratorium expired in January, but it was an old release. So yes, you do need to be really on top of things and, try to talk to someone who, can help you. There are state programs that have rental assistance, both in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. There were federal funds that were appropriated for that. So calling that 211 number can really be a lifesaver because that's kind of like the clearinghouse of all of this current information. So, be proactive. The worst thing I say, my own saying is the worst thing you can do if you're facing a problem is nothing, because that means, it's just going to keep going and snowballing, and you don't want to wait until it's too late and then not have a solution available to you.
That's sound advice. Darlene, how can people reach out to you? How can they learn more?
They can give me a call, and my number is 603-898-4383. I'm licensed in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and I'm located in Salem, New Hampshire. We offer telephone conferences, Zoom conferences, as well as in person, as long as everybody wears a mask. And my website is www.darlenedaniele, Daniele, law.com.
Darlene, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to jump on the show. And as always, thanks for being my friend.
Thank you, Kevin. I enjoyed being here.